guys, so today's 7 on Sunday. I'm actually really sad because this is the last 7 on Sunday I'm actually going to film in my home, so goodbye bookshelves. There is one more video planned on filming though, but it's one that you're probably not going to see for a little bit. It's a video where I plan on filming like 2/3 of the video, and then I have to wait for a little while to film the other half of the video, and it's going to make sense once you actually see the video. So there will be one more time that you see these shelves, but for the moment this is the last time it's ever going to happen, and my clothes are covering everything and it doesn't actually look that nice, but we're not going to think about that bit. But today 7 on Sunday is happening, and if you didn't know, 7 on Sunday is being run by Grace over at G Swizzle, and of course, like every week I always link her down below, because if you're not subscribed to her, I don't know what you're doing. She has such good insightful bookish opinions, and she's so funny, and she's so like hyped up all the time, and it is just amazing. And she went through a patch where she wasn't reading, but now she's back fully, and I really missed her, and now she's here and she's reading so much, and she decided to make 7 on Sunday, and it's honestly helped me so much because I was getting really low on creative ideas and things to do. So she has given me the ability to at least film 1 video a week because I don't have to do the thinking. So 7 on Sunday really changed the game for me, and if you want to join in and feel the same, you really should. But today we're going to be talking about some books that we went into blindly and ended up loving, and I feel that this can kind of relate to like books that you didn't think you were going to like but you ended up loving. But generally I don't really go into books blindly. Like, I always read the premise because I want to know if it's going to be something that I'm actually going to enjoy. Like, sometimes I just get books based off hype or because people keep telling me I need to read them, and then I start reading it, but then I always look at the back and then you start to know. So I don't feel like it's possible to go completely 100% blindly into a book. I've got 7 here and I don't even know if it works, but we're gonna get into it and hope for the best. I'm just quickly going to mention Take 3 Girls by Cynthia Hand, Brodie Ashton and Jodi Meadows. I have to remember authors now, and it's so difficult because all I've got is this photo right here. So if it looks like I don't know what I'm talking about, that is why. But I mention this all the time. I didn't want to read it, but then I decided to pick it up and I really enjoyed it, and I can just tell that Sasha's going to be looking at this topic ideas thinking that I'm going to do this, because every time there is a similar topic where I talk about something that I didn't think I was going to like, she always comments before she watches the video, and she's always right. So yeah, this is one that I highly recommend giving a go. It's an Aussie novel. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find it. It was a fun time. I feel like it was a really useful book, and I feel like it'd just be really good for like especially teenage girls in Australia to pick up this book, because it just goes into so many different issues that would just be so helpful for them as well, and it was just a really good story. Next I want to talk about The Wrath from the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, and I have not talked about this book for the longest time. Honestly, at the time I bought this book when I hadn't really been collecting too many books yet. Like, obviously I had books, but all of the books I had were like Twilight and Cassandra Clare and Vampire Academy and Fallen and all those like paranormal stories that we probably all started reading when we were about that age frame, like 10 years ago. So this was one of the first books that I bought that was completely different from everything that I had, and this is the point where I really discovered that I enjoyed retellings and really liked this type of story. And I picked up The Wrath from the Dawn. I remember I was at my grandma's. It was one time when we went there for a visit and I brought it with me, and I started reading it, and then I just could not stop, and I really didn't know where this story was going to go, but like as I kept reading I just was so invested, and it was one of my favorite books. It's still one of my favorite books. Like, I feel like, you know, soon enough I should do a video maybe like about every single book that was my favorite of the year for my booktube, and like see how I feel about them now and see if my opinions have changed or if I still really enjoy them. Video idea just sparked on the spot there, guys, but like I just really enjoyed this book so much. Next I want to talk about Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Walsh. This is a book that I bought because the cover had ice cream on it, and I like ice cream, so I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. But like when I started reading it, I didn't actually realize how much I was going to enjoy it, because they go to Italy and it's all about travel, but it's also about, like, I think the main character's mum died and she is sent to live with her dad, and she doesn't know her dad. She finds this diary that her mum wrote about this whirlwind relationship that she has with her father, but then she starts to see that there's things that she wants answers to, and she can't really ask her mum because she's not there anymore. And she goes for this like whirlwind of a trip around Italy with this guy that she meets, who was also such a cutie as well. Like, they had a really cute relationship, but I didn't really know how much this was going to be like travel wise, and it was so much fun. And then I read the second one, which was about Ireland, and I had so much fun. And there was a third one that's Love and Olives, so I think it's set in Greece. I think olives are from Greek, right? Olives are like a Greek thing. I'm so dumb right now, but like I want to read that one too, but I haven't bought it and I probably won't be able to buy it again because of moving. Moving is going to become my new favorite word because it's what's going to be my life for like ever now. Next I want to talk about Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor, because who actually knew what this book was about when they read it? Because you read the premise and it's like, okay, there's like a human and an angel and you're like, okay, something kind of went on, and as I say this, it was more Strange the Dreamer that was hella confusing. But even when I started this book, I was like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? You had like time skips and then things happening and then like memories and then different characters and I didn't really know how to connect what was going on, but then as I kept reading it, I got so invested, and this is another favorite of the year. So this is really nice that a lot of my favorites I kind of went into blindly and I was just blown away by how good they were. But I really enjoyed this first book, and I definitely think that the strongest book in the series is the first book, because I read the second one and the story has just gotten like really weird, and now I'm like, what's happening? And I haven't managed to pick up the third one yet, because obviously I will pick up the third one, but it's in a box, so it's not happening for a while. But I just really enjoyed this book and it was so much fun. Next, I want to talk about The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one that I would say I went into blindly, because at the time that this was released, everyone was picking it up, everyone was talking about it, and around the same time was when I decided I wanted to get into audiobooks, so I was kind of checking out different things to use, but I eventually went with Sasha's recommendation to use Scribd, and the first book I listened to was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So this was a blind experience for me because I'd never listened to an audiobook before, so I didn't know what to expect from that account. But then as I kept reading it and discovering how the story was actually going to work and who were the main characters and what was actually like the main point of the story, I was just blown away. I enjoyed this book so much, and that is why I have now read basically everything else by this author. I bought all of her books, like I basically own all of them. I just have to read Daisy Jones and the Six and Malibu Rising, and then I will be up to date again with having read everything. But she is a great author. She writes such thought-provoking stories and has so many different ideas and so many different things that make you just sit there and think like, oh my god, what if this actually happened in my life? And she's just describing it like you've actually gone through it, even though you have not. But I love this book so much. It was such a fun time. I'm gonna talk about like a really old book that I read like years and years ago, but for some reason I just decided to put this in the video. But Mystic City by Theo Lawrence is a book that I saw ad for it like on Facebook or something like a gazillion years ago before I even started BookTube, and the cover was the most intriguing thing because this is gorgeous, like the most beautiful cover I've ever seen in my whole entire life. I love it so much. But I basically just picked this up and read it, and it was still paranormal, but as I said, like with Wrath of the Dawn, even though that happened probably a few years after I read this, it was something different, and I just felt like it was just more of a story. Like obviously all those other books I mentioned are still great stories and they're still really good, but to me all those books still feel like the books that I read in my childhood, but now I feel like I've matured so much as a reader, so I feel like Mystic City was a step to becoming a little bit mature with my reading. And as I said, all these books are great. I could reread them now, except Twilight because it's kind of shit. I could reread all the other ones and still enjoy them now. But it still feels like a difference of like, I was a different person when I read them then. I'm different now with all my reading. Like my reading is completely different from back then. Mystic City was just such a cool story. I really liked it, and like the plot twist at the end and all the things happening, it was so good. And then I read the sequel and it was just like, what happened to this story? You kind of ruined it. And then a third book never came out, so I'm never gonna know what's actually going to happen at the end of this, because they kind of really killed it with the main relationship in the second book. And then there was this other guy that I was like, oh my god, I was so obsessed with the main relationship in the first book that I kind of started to get attached to this other dude, and then I was like, no, what are they doing in the story, what's happening? But I really enjoyed Mystic City, and I'm not sure if it's one that's actually really available to buy, but it was just such an interesting story and a fun time. And the last book I'm going to mention is Sadie by Courtney Summers, because I feel like it's the kind of same thing, as this book was so hyped and everyone was talking about it, and then it popped up on audio and I'm just like, this is a book everyone's mentioning and saying it's really, really good, and I picked it up and I did not know I was going to be so devastated by everything happening in that book. I feel like obviously this book would have a lot of trigger warnings because there is some awful stuff, like full-on awful stuff that happens in this book, but it was so intriguing. But the idea of it being the podcast and then Sadie's first-person point of view was something I've never read from before, and even when I first picked it up I kind of wasn't really sure of this like whole like element of the story, but then I got again so invested in it because Wes is following her and he's finding out things and things that Sadie doesn't even know, and I was like, oh, like it was such a really cool reading experience and a really cool concept. And I feel that Courtney Summers is going to go a long way in her writing, because I think that she's really getting recognition now, and that's really, really cool. And this is one that I recommend to everyone, even though it's not like a happy story. It's such an investing one. So guys, that is all the books I have to talk about today. This was actually a really fun topic. I liked it, even though, again, I am one to put my research in for the books that I buy. Like, I mean, years ago I was just bloody buying things left, right and center, like not giving a shit, and now it's like you've got too many things to deal with now, Abby. I really try to research the books I want to buy based off like recommendations, or how much I see people talking about them, or just generally what the plot's about. At least with audiobooks it doesn't really matter as much, because I can just go along and just be like save, and then I go through it every now and then and be like, why did I save this? I'm not going to listen to this, and then change it. I have like 62 books on my TBR for my audios, but there's also like about 15 there that are books I physically own. That's like a concept that I might try. Like, try to listen to ones that I have to try and get my TBR down, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!